Welcome to the Brain Warriors Way podcast. I'm Dr. Daniel Amen.
And I'm Tana Amen. Here we teach you how to win the fight for your brain to defeat anxiety, depression, memory loss, ADHD, and addictions.
The Brain Warriors Way podcast is brought to you by Amen Clinics, where we've transformed lives for 3 decades using brain SPECT imaging to better target treatment and natural ways to heal the brain. For more information, visit amenclinics.com.
The Brain Warriors Way podcast is also brought to you by BrainMD, where we produce the highest quality nutraceutical products to support the health of your brain and body. For more information, visit brainmdhealth.com. Welcome to the Brain Warriors Way podcast. So today on the Brain Warriors Way podcast, we have a special treat. Daniel is finishing his newest book. I would say his next book, but he's just constantly working on another one. I think this is number 46 or something crazy.
Oh my gosh.
So I have one of our psychiatrists who's just wonderful, Dr. Faber.
Oh, thank you.
Joining us today. And I wanted him to join us because I went with you last year, Daniel and I, and Chloe, actually our daughter, went with you to one of your charity events. You're highly involved in something called the Bony Pony Foundation. Right,
Yeah,
Bony Pony Ranch.
Ranch Foundation, yes.
Yes.
There you go, yes.
And so we went with you, and initially I didn't know what it was really about, but when we went, I was very impressed. I really enjoyed it.
Oh,
And
good.
so I want to talk to you about what that is. I know you do a lot of work with foster kids, which touched really our own lives this last year. And so I want to talk to you a lot about that.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what it is.
So yeah, historically the Bony Pony Ranch started off probably about 10 years ago. Good friend of mine, Dr. Frank Ryan, plastic surgeon, had kids that were at risk go up to his ranch in Malibu.
Okay.
And we would teach them life skills. And then unfortunate event, Dr. Ryan passed away. And then I moved back to California. And some of the old members said, let's get this going again. So boom. So here we are getting the Bony Pony Ranch.
Yeah, it was really great. You had a couple of the kids that you had worked with who were in foster care, who had benefited from this foundation there speaking, and I was so impressed. And you never know what's going to happen in your own life, and these things touch. I don't care who you are and what your family is like, they can touch your life. We never expected at that time that it was going to touch our own lives.
Yes.
And right after that, actually, we ended up, my nieces who lived out of state and I hadn't seen for years because, so one of my family sort of disappeared and I hadn't seen them for a while. They went into foster care. And it took us, the last year was pretty rough, trying to, work with them and get them out. But what happens with some kids in foster care, even if it's not the worst stories that you hear, it can be pretty traumatic. Just going through that process.
Yeah, well, the whole process and the separation from your caregivers, no matter what the quality of the relationship is, it's hard. And in fact, the younger the kids, the harder it becomes. I had at one point worked at a hospital in Houston, and they had an adolescent and a child unit, and I had to go down and visit. The child unit had broken sinks, holes in the cement wall, and then on the adolescent side, where you'd think things would actually be worse, they had some scratches on the wall and marks, but nothing broke. And I said, well, what's going on? And it was the fact that these kids were taken out of their homes. Oh, and so the anger, the fear, it's a lot harder the younger you are.
Well, we certainly experienced it firsthand. I mean, my nieces, it was devastating. Yeah. And you have to think about what was going on in their lives before they even got put into that situation that made that happen to begin with. Clearly, there's some skills missing. So that's what your foundation does.
Yeah, our foundation really is set to help build healthier attachments with kids who have not had those attachments. And then second, teach them the life skills, the leadership skills that the schools may not necessarily be teaching them.
And that's what we're doing now. Now that they're out, now we basically have adopted the whole family because we don't know what else. How do you rebuild a family that's been through what they've been through? Right. We moved them down here and we've adopted the entire family because the family's broken. So rebuilding that entire structure is hard, but not everybody has a family who's going to do that, right?
Right.
So you spend a lot of energy helping these kids build those skills. And I got to tell you, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of energy.
It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of just building relationships.
And trust.
Making the connection, the trust issue. And you think of all the things they've been through, and all the things we mistakenly can do too. Like we'll meet next week, and if you don't meet next week, for us, it's like, well, we'll call tomorrow. For them, it's like, well, can I really believe they're going to call me at all?
Exactly. I mean, we're dealing with all of that.
Yeah.
It's like one of my nieces basically made the comment that my life has been a series of like periods of things being okay, but I'm always waiting for the next major tragedy and letdown.
Yeah.
So she goes, I almost would prefer it wasn't okay.
Yes.
Because it just means the next big thing's about to happen. I'm like, wow. And I remember when I was a kid, nothing like that. I didn't go into foster care, but I remember always thinking there's a white tiger hiding around every corner. Like it's that same idea. Like, what's the next thing that's going to happen? It's horrible.
Yeah, no, and it's scary when you think about, and for foster kids, they're afraid the foster parents aren't going to be there. And so what's the fear? I'll be on the streets. And it's like, and it sounds sort of maybe, melodramatic, but it's not. It's like, this is a real situation.
Oh no, it's survival. Everything was survival. Getting my nieces just to believe that they could tell us the simplest things. And it wasn't that she wanted to lie. She looked at me and started crying. I'm like, why is it you can't tell me something so simple? Like, you can't trust me with something so simple. She looked at me and started to cry. She's such a good kid. She managed to get straight A's through this whole process, which is bizarre all on its own. She looked at me, she goes, survival.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's something I can't, as bad as my situation was growing up, I can't comprehend it being that bad. So I just had a whole new level of empathy for her. So give us like 2 or 3 things that someone listening who might be struggling. Number one, like how could they reach out to you if they wanted to access?
Oh, the Bony Pony Ranch. The best way to get a hold is go to our website, bonyponyranch.org.
Okay.
And you'll get all sorts of information about what we do, our board of directors, how to get in touch with us. So that is by far the best way right now to get.
And I will tell you, after going through what I went through the last year with my nieces, your foundation means that much more. I have a very personal understanding of why a foundation like this is so important, because not everyone can do what we are doing with our family. They need someone to help intervene and to help do that.
Yes.
So, that's a really important thing. And what are a couple of tips that you could give someone who's struggling with youth that's, maybe needs some intervention? What are a couple tips you would offer? Yeah,
I mean, I find one of the best ways is sit down and have a lunch or dinner. It sounds simple, but it's amazing when you break bread. People are more open to tell you things that are really going on. And you will learn a lot. Second, I would just have some kind of catch questions just in case, so you know how to engage them on different things. And you could look in books, I like to use my own personal ones. Tell me something in your life that was really great that you remember. And you'd be surprised just the answers you get. Tell me something that was sort of painful, and you'd be surprised what you get. It's
amazing if you just listen, isn't it?
Yeah. If you listen, and that's a whole nother conversation of itself, how to really connect. But yeah. It's
amazing with teenagers. So many parents always say, oh, my teenagers just won't talk to me. They shut me out. One thing I learned, my daughter's friends and my daughter tell me way more than I've ever wanted to know. I'm like, I don't know how to shut them up. So it's really weird. But what I found works is, like you said, as busy as we are, and we are incredibly busy people, we've made a point to have dinner together. I've always made a point to take time. When my daughter was little, I always read to her. Now it's just taking that time to spend some time together at night, whatever. If it's watching a little bit of her favorite TV show, I don't care what it is. Spending a little bit of time together where I set everything aside. But the big thing is I go for drives with her.
Yes.
We set time aside every day. She's homeschooling now, but even when she was in school, we would leave extra early in the morning, and when I would pick her up at the end of the day, and I would make a point to go, whether it's Starbucks and get tea or whatever it is, take a drive down to the beach. I would just take that extra 10 minutes to go out of my way before I'd get home, because there's something about being in the car and there's no pressure. And we're just driving. And I don't know why, and I know so many parents who say the same thing. There's something about being in the car and just driving, ask a question, and then shut up. And they just start spilling their guts. It's so weird.
That's interesting. I haven't thought of that, but
I don't know why. And I know so many moms who say the same thing. Or they're driving and they're with their friends in the car, and for some reason they're way more open to talking with their friends in the car. And so you're just sitting there listening. You're like, wow, are they really saying this in front of me? Do I really want to know this?
It's
like,
but you do. Too much information.
Right. But it's good.
Yeah. Well, that's how you learn. And then again, kids, 12, 13-year-olds, if you want to know where the trends are going, they'll let you know.
Yep. Yep. It's so great. Well, thank you so much. So Bony Pony Ranch Foundation.org.
Yeah, BonyPonyRanch.org.
.org.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
.org.
just go there and you'll get all the information.
Okay, well, I really loved attending that event that we went to, and it's such an important topic and one that is just so overlooked in our society. So, thank you.
Well, great. Thank you for having me. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
So I'm back with Dr. Faber. So thank you for joining me again. Dr. Faber, if I didn't mention it in the last episode, is one of our child psychiatrists. So we're so excited to have you. And we're going to talk today about something that is such a problem. And I hear it so much from a lot of my daughter's friends, the parents of my daughter's friends, social media.
Yeah.
And you hear it from parents all the time.
Parents all the time. Yeah.
So talk to us about what you hear and what the problem seems to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's several factors we see, but I think, the bottom line is the kids are spending oodles of time playing Minecraft and Call of Duty, and the parents don't know what to do. And by lots of time, we're talking about 5 to 7 hours a day.
Yeah, when you first said 5 to 7 hours, I thought you were going to say a week.
No.
And I almost fell out of my chair
Yeah.
when you said a day.
Yeah.
How do you even spend that much time a day on social media? I would want to shoot myself in the foot if I did that. I would die.
Yeah. No.
How is that possible?
Well, here's one of the trends we're seeing. So people go to college or high school, graduate, and all of a sudden we're done. And when you think about changes in stresses, that's probably a big one. And for the kids that aren't going to school or don't have a purpose or not sure what they want to do, what do? You get some pleasure from going from level 1 to 4 and some purpose in playing these games.
So you just touched on something really important because that's a big part of the book that Daniel and I wrote together, The Brain Warrior's Way.
Yes.
Hence the name of the podcast, The Brain Warrior's Way, is purpose. And so I practice martial arts and we focus a lot on purpose. And it's not just about learning a new form. It's about how you live your life. Bushido, Way of the Warrior, was about it was a model for living your life. And so it's got to be purpose driven.
There you go. Yeah. And when you think about purpose, it's not like all of a sudden you wake up and here's your purpose. It is a warrior's way. You do have to
it's something
put
you
some
do,
work
right?
in and aggressive about it to find out what it is you want to do with your life.
Very interesting. So, that lack of purpose can be really devastating to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So studies show, though, that people who spend too much time on social media, not only are they not present, not only does it drop IQ points, but you're more likely to be depressed.
Yeah, you're more likely to be depressed. I just saw a study 2 days ago. One out of 5 kids are spending way too much time at night on social media. And by way too late, they're like 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, texting all their friends. And then they wake up in the morning and boom, they're sleepy, they're tired, they can't do their schoolwork, their sense of well-being
Right.
is
Well,
going
and being
way
on
down.
social media actually does interfere. The screen itself, the light itself, interferes with your sleep.
Yeah.
So that alone, kids
That's-
already have a harder time sleeping because their melatonin, their circadian rhythm is different. So their melatonin releases later. So if you add to that, now I'm going to stay on social media, you're really messing their cycle up.
Yeah, no, it's the blue light. That's a whole nother
Right.
conversation in itself. But absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really going to mess things up. When you said that, I was so stunned. Our daughter, Chloe, we've got her so busy. So we often joke that it was our sort of like our little evil plan, our devious little plan. She's homeschooling now, and we've got her, she's very involved in the arts. And it actually wasn't intentional. It just sort of worked out that way. She's so busy that, she's just got so many things going on. She's involved in her church group. She's involved in, a global leadership group. She's got all these things. She's so busy. And one day she looked at me and she started laughing. She goes, I don't remember the last time I was on Instagram. And she goes, my friends thought that I sort of dropped off the face of the earth. So we checked her phone. And she's on there an average, if you average it out, 10 minutes a day. So when you said 5 to 7 hours a day, I don't know what other kids spend on there, but I thought you were going to say a week, and that would have been a lot.
Yeah.
But a day?
A day. Yeah.
And the only difference in what we're doing is keeping her busy. So with things that she loves and that are purposeful. So purpose.
Yeah, but that's one of the beauties. I mean, the stuff you're doing, I think parents would be open to hearing. It's like, here's what you've got to do. It's more than just getting good grades in school, which is important, but all the other constructive activities, the church, the groups, all that adds up to make life more meaningful.
Right. And we do focus a lot. I mean, granted, she's been hearing this since she could walk. So there is that she's been hearing about how it's bad for your brain and how it's, drops IQ points and doesn't make you all that smart. And so we've been pushing on that for a long time. So she has that advantage, but it's never too late to start learning that. It's never too late to start teaching even your adult kids, like why it's important. But one of the things that we've always impressed upon her is this younger generation. Tell me what you think about this. I mean, it's what I notice with my daughter's friends. They're not present. They're not present. They don't communicate that well face to face. So they're losing that ability to walk up and confidently shake someone's hand, look you in the eye. I mean, that's going to affect their ability to get a job. Yeah. That's going to affect their ability to interact in a social world. I feel like the world's becoming less social. Yeah.
And here's sort of with the social media piece. A lot of the kids think the more friends you've got on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, the more social you are. Well, there's studies come out saying, well, those social skills in those kids are actually less. It's almost like a false boost.
So the more they focus on those numbers, which it's a competition.
Yeah.
I see the kids. It's a competition. How are these, like, I'll hear them say, well, how did so-and-so get that many followers? So their whole thing is on getting followers, getting people to like you or whatever, or getting video clicks or whatever.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is that doesn't translate to social skills in real life.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a fooler because the kids think it does.
So fascinating.
Yeah. And so this is, I'm telling you, it'll be a big topic the next 5 to 10 years because you're right, the social skills, conflict resolution, finding passion, it gets lost in looking at pictures and wondering how many more people I can connect with on social media.
And one thing I've seen, and you may have heard this, or I'm sure you have your own ideas about it. My daughter brought this up to me. So she actually decided she wanted to homeschool. She sort of didn't like the way she saw things going at school. And she was popular. It wasn't because there was no social issues why she chose to. It wasn't because she didn't fit in or anything like that. She just wanted to be able to focus. And so she's like, she's a very, very intense, serious kid, and she wanted to be able to focus and move her life forward. But she really didn't like the way things were sort of going at school, the lack of focus, the sort of lack of consideration she was sort of seeing. There's a lot of mean girl stuff going on and a lot of drugs and a lot of things that begin to happen. And it happens earlier than most people think. So 6th, 7th grade is where it's starting. And a lot of parents are like, what? No, it isn't. Yes, it is. And if you don't know that, then your kids just aren't talking to you.
Yeah.
So it might not be happening with your kid if you have one of those unique kids, but it's happening. So, I mean, we're pretty fortunate to be able to know that. But she came home and it was so interesting. Chloe said something to me that was so interesting. She said, it's so much harder to be popular now. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, the idea of being popular is silly. Like, why try? And I said, what do you mean by that? She said, because of social media. Because it's like there's so much taking people's attention away. There's so much going on. There's just like your attention's constantly being taken in different ways. So to be popular, you have to do something more outrageous and more and more and more outrageous than the next person. So Daniel had mentioned one day about somebody who got into trouble for sending naked photos. Someone that he knew that got in trouble for naked photos.
Yeah.
And she's like, so? Chloe went, so? And he was like, what? And she goes, that's not a big deal anymore. She goes, I know you want to think it is. She goes, that's like the next, everyone's doing it. But she goes, it's not right. She goes, is that they're doing it because they don't know how else to be popular anymore.
Yeah.
They have to do something outrageous. And it stunned me. It's not that they're doing it to be bad. It's they're doing it to get attention. Because in a world where everything is just moving so fast, how do you get noticed?
Yeah. And so now you're hitting, to me, a key point for parents is how can we help teach our kids true recognition?
Right.
And how do we develop
What
that?
really matters.
Yeah, and it gets into self-esteem. It gets down to parents reading books, having discussions like we're having now, have your church groups or whatever, talk about some of these real issues. Because a lot of parents will say, you don't do this. Well, why are they doing it in the first place?
Yeah, that doesn't work. In the history of the
get to the
universe,
cause.
that hasn't worked.
Yeah. And so, so the nude pictures, the outrageous things, and then you think of kids, it's like their sense of omnipotence. So nothing's going to happen.
Nothing's going to happen.
And then they try to apply for college, and someone says, well, let's look at Facebook or Instagram. And what do they
And they
see?
do jobs now. They check Facebook.
Yeah.
They check Facebook, one of the first things.
Yep.
So, and there's no being able to say, well, I was just a kid.
Yeah.
So, because they care.
Yeah.
So, but to hear that from my own kid, the wisdom, she knew why they're doing it.
Well, and it sounds like she's getting recognition from other places too.
Right.
And that speaks highly for setting up structures at home where you get that.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. So I love that. So if they want to reach you, Dr. Faber is one of our child psychiatrists here at Amen Clinics. So you can reach out either to our call center, or do you have an email or anything? Well, or a phone number, your assistant's phone number?
Yeah, probably the best way would be to call my assistant at 949-266-8612.
Perfect.
And then if that doesn't work, Doc, D-O-C, Faber, F-A-B-E-R, at amenclinics.com.
Okay, perfect.
Great.
Thanks, Doc.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brain Warriors Way podcast. Go to iTunes and leave a review, and you'll automatically be entered into a drawing to get a free signed copy of the Brain Warriors Way and the Brain Warriors Way cookbook we give away every month.